Hello pupils, you are welcome to General Studies class. I am Uncle Popo. Uncle Popo is here. Your response should be, I am also here. We are here together, then I want to hear 100% attention. Uncle Popo is here. I am also here. We are here together, 100% attention. 100% attention is what I need for today's lesson. Our subject for today is social studies. Our subject for today is social studies. And the topic we want to treat is a very familiar topic, especially during this season. We all know what we are passing through. Let me even share my experience while I was coming this morning. Look at what I saw. Look at the screen. You can see some of you even witnesses, some in your street or your area you witness something like this. And then when you look at this kind of situation, or let me call it a disaster, it's majorly caused by the human factors. How? Most times we drop the wastage, we drop it in the drainage. While we are going on the street or in the car, we throw away the bottle, plastic, nylons on the road, and all this falls into our drainage, and as a result it will block the drainage, and this is what it leads to. We have human factors responsible for this. Not only that, we have some other factors that are not caused by human beings, and that leads us to today's topic, and the topic is disaster. Say that. Disaster. That's the topic we are going to look at today. By the end of today's lesson, you should be able to define disaster and list examples of natural disaster, mention causes, and discuss the effects of natural disaster. That's our objectives for today. Let's look at what disaster is. A disaster is an unexpected event that causes loss of lives and properties. Disaster is an unexpected event that causes loss of lives and properties. Three key words from this definition: unexpected events. What's the second one? Loss of lives. And what's the third one? Loss of properties. When you are defining disaster, remember unexpected event, then remember loss of lives and loss of properties. That is what a disaster is. Now let's look at the types of disaster. Types of disaster. We have two types of disaster, and the first one is artificial disaster. Say that. Artificial disaster. What are artificial disasters? These are disasters caused by actions of human beings and animals. That's let me say it again. These are disasters caused by actions of human beings and animals, like cutting of trees, blocking of drainages, overgrazing by animals. All these are responsible for artificial disaster, like the flood I showed you when we started. They are caused by human factors. Now let's check the other type of disaster, and that is the natural disaster. What are natural disasters? These are disasters caused by natural occurrences. They are disasters caused by what? Natural occurrences. When we say something is natural, that means it just happened. Nobody caused it. It's not by human. It's not by human factor. It just happened that way. That's natural occurrence. That's natural disaster. Now let's look at these disasters we are talking about one after the other. Examples of natural disasters. The first one we want to look at is tornado. Everybody say that. A tornado. A tornado is a very strong wind that moves quickly round in a circle. I pray we don't witness this in this country, because it's very, very dangerous. A very strong wind. It's not the ordinary wind you see that just blow away your paper and in the street, but this one is a very strong one. Very strong wind that moves quickly around in a circle. Let's check what I'm talking about. You get to know what a tornado is. Let's look at this video. Eyes on me. Good one. You can see what we talked about. Tornado there, a very strong wind. Let's move on to another example, and this is earthquake. This is earthquake, and what is this talking about? It's a sudden shaking movement of the ground. A sudden shaking movement of the ground. I also pray again that we don't witness this in our country. All these things I'm talking about is they witness it in some other countries. So earthquake is another example of natural disaster and is very risky. Let's look at what I'm talking about in this video to see what earthquake is. Eyes on me. You can see what we are talking about. It's swallow people, buildings, and it's caused a lot of loss of lives and properties. Another example of natural disaster is flood. This one, you are very familiar with it. I showed you the other time when we started. It's a large amount of water that covers an area that was dry before. A large amount of water that covers an area that was dry before. Mostly it is being caused by human factors, but we have flood that is a natural disaster that is not caused by human factor and is a problem. So let's check what we are talking about. You can see this, and eyes on me. You can see this is flood, and this one is still let me say this one is still even better in a way. If you see some kind of floods, you'll be amazed that wow, how can human being or people pass in this area? So that's another problem. So another example of natural disaster is volcanic eruption. That's volcanic eruption. What are we talking about here? It's the release of gas, ash, or hot water from surface of the earth into the atmosphere. It's the release of gas, ash, or hot water from surface of the earth into the atmosphere. I know this English may be confusing you somehow, but the video will make you have the clear picture of what I'm talking about volcanic eruption. See the video. Eyes on me. Good. You can see what we are talking about here. Nobody said this place ablaze and you saw fire just coming out from the ground. So it's a natural disaster. We pray we don't have it in this country. Another example is drought. Another example is what? Drought. And what are we talking about? Is a period when there is little or no rain. It's a period when there is little or no rain. We are very lucky in this country that we get rain at the right time, but in some other countries they don't have the privilege or blessing that we have in this country. So Nigeria is a blessed country because everything is in abundance for us. So drought is a period when there is little or no rain. It's a natural disaster. Nobody caused it. It just happened. Moving on to the next effect of natural disasters on lives and properties. These natural disasters we talked about, what are the effects on the lives and properties? The first one is destruction of houses. Looking at that earthquake, the volcanic eruption, you can see how houses and lives were lost. So destruction of houses is one effect. Another effect is destruction of farmlands. Like that volcanic eruption, maybe drought. Destruction of farmland is another effect of that. Another one is economic loss. Looking at the houses that have lost, people that have died, and so many buildings that have been destroyed. So it will cause economic loss to such country or environment. Another effect of natural disaster on lives and properties is loss of lives of people and animals. People's lives will be lost, likewise the animals will have a shortage of people and animals because of the disaster. So loss of lives and people and animals is another effect. Looking at the last one, that's a blocking of communication and transportation. Like the transportation will be affected because the road will be disturbed. The communication will be disrupted because of natural disaster. Where we have flood, where we have earthquake, you should know that the communication will be affected. The transportation will also be affected. So making it to be an effect of natural disaster, blocking of communication and transportation. Now, in today's lesson, let's check how to control or prevent natural disasters. How to control or prevent natural disasters. 1. Provision of free flow drainage. Say that, provision of free flow drainage. If you have free flow drainage, there won't be flood, especially the one caused by human factors. 2. Planting trees and cover crops. Planting trees and cover crops will help us to prevent erosion and some other disaster. And the third one is reduction of the number of animals grazing on the vegetation. When we reduce the number of animals grazing on the vegetation, it will help us to control or prevent natural disaster. Reduction of mechanized farming. The use of machines, big and heavy machines on the farm, is also a problem in some way. And if we reduce, not that we should not use those machines, but we should reduce it to a certain level to prevent natural disaster. Another one is building of houses far away from river banks, because we have some cases where we have a tsunami where most houses were disturbed in some other countries. And the advice is you build your house far away from river banks so that you won't be disrupted when disaster arrives. Next one is provision of potable water to avoid epidemics. When we have potable water, it will prevent diseases. So provision of potable water to avoid epidemics is another way to prevent natural disasters. And that's evaluation. Questions. Question number 1, what is a disaster? Question number 2, list 2 types of disasters. Question number 3, list 3 effects of natural disasters. Only your answers. Your time starts now. Eyes on me. Good job, you. I believe you have answered correctly. Let's check to see how you've answered. The answers are these. What is a disaster? A disaster is an unexpected event that causes loss of lives and properties. List 2 types of disasters: artificial disaster, natural disaster. List 3 effects of natural disasters: destruction of houses, destruction of farmlands, economic loss, loss of lives of people and animals. Mark accordingly and score yourself. If you have gotten everything correctly, I give you a cheer. We have come to the end of today's lesson. Until next time, next lesson, Uncle Popo says, keep on studying.